The Taurus Mountains, known as Toros Dağları, cut across southern Turkey like the ancient spine of a continent, their limestone walls rising in sheer cliffs above dark, narrow gorges and endless forests of towering pines. This land does not welcome hesitation. It is harsh, demanding, and unforgiving, where every footstep on stone reminds you that man does not rule here. He merely passes through. And it is within this rugged, unyielding landscape that the Eurasian wild boar has endured for thousands of years. Muscular, resilient, and guided by instinct honed to perfection, they do not simply hide from the world. They become the mountains themselves, blending into rock and shadow as naturally as wind through the pines. Out here, they are not just animals. They are survivors. And that is what makes them one of the most unpredictable and challenging adversaries in the world of responsible, controlled hunting. In the Taurus, there is no step that the forest does not notice. Every movement, every breath is observed by the land itself. And when a person enters a place like this, what are they truly seeking? A test of skill, a measure of courage, or perhaps simply the chance to finally listen to the silence of nature, the kind of silence that teaches more than any spoken word ever could. Today we walk these mountains not to conquer them, but to understand them. And to answer that question, we invite you to follow along. This is NEO Farm, and this is where the journey begins. In the southern provinces of Turkey, Adana, Mersin, and Antalya, the wild boar is no longer just another part of the Taurus landscape. It has become a very real economic and ecological pressure. According to the Turkish Ministry of Agriculture, crop damage caused by wild boar is estimated at 180 to 250 million lira each year, the equivalent of roughly $6.5 to $9.5 million. A single herd of 8 to 20 animals can tear through half a hectare to 2 full hectares of wheat in one night, or wipe out an entire season of corn or potatoes. In the vineyards and olive groves that line these mountain slopes, losses can reach 30 to 60% of the harvest. Their numbers grow quickly. A mature sow can produce 2 litters a year, 4 to 8 piglets each time, with survival rates reaching 70 to 80%. Left unchecked, a population can expand tenfold in just 2 years. And when natural food runs short, the animals move down toward villages, breaking fences, threatening livestock, and causing accidents on mountain roads. At that point, it's not just crops that are lost, it's the natural balance of the Taurus itself that begins to shift. In the face of such losses, local farmers tried to defend their land the best they could. They raised wire fences, hung bells as warnings, kept torches burning through the night, even shifted their planting seasons to avoid the boar's movement through the valleys. But the wild boar learns quickly. Within just a few seasons, they knew how to avoid the traps, slip past the lights, squeeze through the smallest gaps, and return along the paths no human would think to guard. These measures bought time, but they never solved the problem. And when the boundary between farmland and forest began to blur beyond recognition, people had no choice but to call on those who understand the mountains the way the mountains understand themselves. That is when the professional hunting teams, men who grew up with the smell of the Taurus wind and the rhythm of footsteps on stone, step forward. They do not come for trophies. They come to restore the line that has been fading between the fields we tend and the wilderness that was here long before us. The mixed pine and oak forests that blanket these steep mountains make the Taurus both wide open and impossibly narrow. Every movement is shaped by the land itself, by stone quarters, tight valleys, and ancient game trails carved over generations. These invisible pathways form the tactical heartbeat of the hunt. To the hunter, this is not just forest, it is a map. The ravines and natural channels act like pressure lines, guiding the wild boar into predictable funnels where they must move together. And it is at these natural choke points where a single well-timed decision can change everything. High on the rock faces, hunters gain the advantage of height, a view that cuts above the canopy, watching movement unfold across the valley floor. The light shifts by the hour and the terrain seems to breathe with it. With good glass, a hunter can identify feeding zones, bedding slopes, and travel corridors long before a single step touches the dry leaves below. But the Taurus forest also imposes its own hard limits. The steep slopes, jagged stone underfoot, and tree roots twisting across the ground make it difficult for a hunter to keep both speed and balance. One misplaced step can turn the hunter into the one being hunted, especially when a wild boar chooses to stand its ground instead of flee. At close range, that can be dangerous in an instant. Even sound cannot be trusted here. The barks of the wings bend and scatter against rock walls and heavy canopy, echoing in multiple directions, turning location into a matter of instinct rather than hearing. In the Taurus, there are no perfect signals, no absolute certainty, only calm hands, steady breathing, and the experience to keep moving forward. In this environment, the strategy is not a single chase, but a driven hunt, a method that demands absolute coordination between the hunters, the dogs, and the terrain itself. The driving team moves deep into the forest, slow and deliberate, reading tracks and sign, pushing the boar along the natural routes the mountains allow. At the same time, the intercept team holds position at carefully chosen choke points, where the animals are most likely to break into the open. Modern gear, radios, GPS, cannot replace experience, but they help keep the rhythm of communication in a forest where sound twists and vision narrows. Success here is not about speed or force. It comes from the quiet understanding between those involved, each person knowing exactly where to stand, how long to wait, and when to act in the one brief moment the forest permits. In a driven hunt within the Taurus forest, technology does not replace skill. It keeps the tactic from breaking apart. Each dog wears a GPS collar, allowing the handler to track movement in real time, an essential tool in terrain where sound bends off cliffs and thick canopy, making a bark impossible to trust. Radios form the lifeline between the driving team and the intercept team, letting them adjust positions with just a few short words so the boar cannot slip past and break the line. And when the teams need to move fast across the steep slopes or circle ahead to a new position before the forest closes the window, all-terrain vehicles become indispensable, cutting reaction time in a landscape where every meter can be a challenge. Out here, where the speed of a decision matters as much as the speed of the animal, these tools are not meant to make the hunt easier. They exist to maintain order, coordination, and safety for the hunters, for the bees, and for the very land they are working to protect. In the driven hunts of the Taurus forest, technology helps maintain rhythm and coordination, but the outcome is still decided in the moment of direct encounter. And that is where the role of the rifleman becomes critical. The Taurus wild boar is powerful, thick-muscled, and remarkably resilient. If the first shot is not precise, the animal may disappear deep into the forest, raising the risk of a sudden countercharge, or forcing the team and the dogs into a dangerous pursuit through rough terrain. For that reason, ending the hunt with a clean, responsible shot is the highest standard. The marksman uses a high-powered rifle chambered in .30-06 or 300 Win Mag to ensure reliable penetration and stopping capability. A high-quality scope provides a stable sight picture under the shifting light of the canopy, especially when the animal may reveal its body for only a brief second. But no matter how modern the equipment, the defining factor is always the human element. The slow breath, the steady trigger press, and the understanding that each shot is not just an ending. It is the final link in a long chain of coordination, discipline, and respect for the land. The night, the most critical phase of the operation, began with an invisible light. Through the handheld thermal camera, a hidden world unfolded. Silent heat signatures drifting through the Anatolian pines, sketching the movement of wild boars as they prowled beneath a sky thick with darkness. On helmets and rifle barrels, night vision optics and IR illuminators glowed faintly, casting just enough light to outline the edges of trees and the open paths ahead. There were no knees, no shouting, no torches, only discipline and the electric hum of quiet technology.
Some domestic
laser
heats, certainly very
rangefinders,
different.
digital compasses, wind meters, and ballistic calculators fit neatly in a gloved hand, each number a small victory against the chaos of the night. Radio signals whispered like breathing through encrypted channels. Each hunter advanced slowly, spacing themselves, following the wind. In these woods, a misplaced step or a broken twig could mean the difference between order and disaster. Because when night falls in Turkey, wild boars become more than animals. They become a living nightmare. From the Taurus Mountains to the Aegean Plains, they pour out of the forest like a flood of black water, tearing through wheat fields, ripping open olive groves, and grinding vineyards and pomegranate orchards into ruin. In places like Muğla and Izmir, locals say they appear like ghosts, emerging when the moon hides behind clouds. And by dawn, all that's left is mud, shattered roots, and the stench of destruction. They are clever, fearless, and relentless. A full-grown male can weigh over 300 pounds, strong enough to uproot stone walls built centuries ago. They eat everything: corn, figs, chestnuts, melons, even the carcasses of their own kind. Every night they leave a battlefield behind, soil turned over like graves, fences flattened, wells fouled, and the thick, sour odor of the wild creeping into homes.
You guys that watch the channel regularly will know that I get to do this shooting business quite often.
In America, they call them the invisible plague. In Turkey, the farmers of Anatolia have another name, Geti Laneti, the curse of the night. They cause road accidents on mountain passes, kill livestock, and spread deadly diseases: African swine fever, brucellosis, leptospirosis, threats that jump easily from beast to human. One collision with a wild boar on a Turkish highway can destroy a car and a family in the same instant. A herd of 30 can erase a farmer's entire season of work in a few hours. In the old villages near Pamukkale, there are men who've lost 3 harvests in a row, and so the government sends hunters, not for sport, but for survival. That's why these men in the forest aren't thrill seekers. They're the last barrier between an unbalanced wilderness and the fragile order of human life. They walk in the dark not to kill, but to restore equilibrium, to hold the line against a natural force that refuses to be tamed. And when the thermal scope flares with the image of a massive boar tearing down an ancient olive tree, the hunter knows. This shot isn't about trophies or glory, it's about saving the land itself from the silent, unstoppable ruin called the wild boar. For this reason, no hunt in the Taurus forest is ever carried out with complacency. It demands a calm so steady it borders on stillness. The team must know when to move, and more importantly, when to stop. They listen to the forest the way one listens to an old adversary, knowing that a single rush step can tip the balance entirely in favor of the boar. The elders in the villages say, in the Taurus, if you do not respect the forest will teach you at a cost you do not want to pay. And those words are not a warning, they are survival, earned the hard way. This is where the true nature of the hunt becomes clear. It is not born from a desire to show force, but from the need to restore the natural boundary between the mountain forest and the fields below. When the crops are torn up, when the soil's overturned, when the ecosystem begins to shift out of balance, people are left with no choice but to step into the woods. But they enter not as conquerors. They enter to listen, to respond, and to correct.